and we take our legacy with us. We started small, but our dreams were big. And we chased them tirelessly with all our heart. That's what brought us to the top. To the world's biggest names. And to people's lives. We're committed to partnering greatness, no matter where we go. From India to Germany, to France to Sweden, and now USA. We always go that extra mile and bring the best to wherever our clients are, and we never settle. Over 50 years, we have pioneered innovations across fields. Our expertise keeps sharpening. Our credits keep increasing. And our relationships, they only keep growing. We are fueled by our dreams. Inspired by the next possibility. We nurture ideas, give them wings, make them soar. We seek to build a better, smarter, and brighter tomorrow. And we will. Because that's just who we are. Driven, caring, innovative, and unstoppable.
At Ashok Leyland, we've been in the business of mobility for close to 70 years. We are a part of the Hinduja Group, a transnational conglomerate spread over 100 countries and 6 continents, with diversified business holdings across 10 verticals. Today, we are the second largest manufacturer of commercial vehicles in India. We are the third largest manufacturer of buses worldwide. We are present in more than 50 countries, besides being market leaders for buses in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. We have a significant presence in the countries of the Gulf Cooperative Council and Africa, dominating in the bus and truck segments. Our products reach out to over 70 million people. Yet every day, we strive to find new ways of enhancing the lives of the people around us. We're constantly innovating for the future, helping redefine mobility, designing better products, and finding better ways to produce them. Our products are defined by their practicality and functionality. Every customer solution we provide is driven by thoughtful innovation. With the introduction of BS6, Ashok Leyland has taken the proven IEGR technology up a notch to introduce the iGen 6 engine technology, which enhances the engine performance and durability further. With lower diesel exhaust fluid DEF consumption and compact design, iGen 6 lowers the cost of operation, offers better fluid efficiency and low maintenance. The unique mid-NOx strategy ensures overall lower cost of ownership. Avatar is a revolutionary, industry-first modular truck platform from Ashok Leyland that is powered by the iGen 6 technology. Avatar's incredibly diverse range of options lets you customize your truck based on your load, terrain, and application requirements, spread across the entire range from 18.5 to 55 tons. The Avatar range of trucks comes with multiple options of axle configuration, loading spans, cabins, suspension, and drivetrains on a single platform that offers you a whole new trucking experience. Our vehicles serve our customers in remote locations, and we ensure that every vehicle is fitted with monitors that track its vital parameters. With an early warning system, we make sure no one is left stranded. The joy of children using our product inspires us. Innovations in our school buses have always kept children's needs in mind. We also make sure that they are the safest buses on the road. We are working towards using cleaner energy sources to drive our vehicles. Our electric vehicle program is set to redefine the future of environment-friendly transportation. Our greatest test, however, is a matter of national security. We are the largest supplier of logistics vehicles to the Indian Army. Our vehicles perform under the toughest conditions on our national borders. Our engines not only help safeguard our nation, but also help power businesses. The power solutions we provide are amongst the most reliable in the market. Our belief in partnership for growth has kept customers' progress at the heart of every solution we provide. To us, partnerships happen on many levels. Our driver training institutes have produced close to 1 million highly skilled drivers across the country. In the remotest villages of India, we have revolutionized the way children are being educated. Through key collaborations and innovative teaching methods, we are empowering the children of our villages. To us, mobility is more than just the business we are in. In our world, it signifies progress. It means enabling success to our customers, enhancing their lives. Mobility for us is everything in life.
In this shifting, driven world, the sure of is change. It's tough to stay ahead, but that's okay. Just as long as you always know who to count on. We are Cummins. We create the power solutions people depend on. It's what we've done for more than 100 years. Sure, all that history makes us proud, but the future pulls us forward. However good we are today, we know the best is yet to come. Our business is endlessly shaped by our customers. What they need defines us. And what they say makes us stronger. Who are they? Everybody. But whether their challenges are personal or global, we do everything in our power to solve them. Because no matter where you're headed, we've got your back. And we're with you all the way. And we never forget how our actions impact the people and the world around us. So whenever there are choices, we make sure we do the right thing. This is what we do to power a more prosperous world. And that is never going to change. That's why we're always trusted, always innovating, always customer-driven, always responsible. For a world that's always on.
Welcome to the world of Tata Steel, a flagship company of the global business conglomerate, the Tata Group. Tata Steel is one of the world's most geographically diversified steel producers, with operations and commercial presence across the world. The story began with the dream of one man, Jamsetji Nusserwanji Tata, a pioneer, a visionary, a man ahead of his times. He had his heart set on building a steel plant in India that would compare with the best globally. His dream was brought to fruition by his son, Dorabji Tata, and thus was born Tata Iron and Steel in Jamshedpur in 1907. At the turn of the 21st century, fueled by its global aspirations, Tata Steel expanded its footprint to Southeast Asia in Singapore and Thailand. Acquisition of Chorus in Europe in 2007 placed it amongst the top global steel companies in the world. In 2015, Tata Steel set up a state-of-the-art integrated steel plant at Kalinganagar, Odisha in India. The Phase 2 expansion of Kalinganagar steel plant from 3 million TPA to 8 million TPA is currently underway. The company is all set to pursue domestic growth with its acquisition of Bhushan Steel Limited and the steel business of Usha Martin. This forms part of the overall strategy to increase its India footprint, build capacity in long products, and enrich the product portfolio. Besides steel manufacturing facilities, the company has mining assets in the state of Jharkhand and Odisha in India. Tata Steel has evolved into a leading steel manufacturer, catering to diverse market segments. In its trend-setting journey, spanning more than a century, Tata Steel has contributed immensely towards the well-being of the planet and people. Guided by its vision to be the global steel industry benchmark for value creation and corporate citizenship, Tata Steel is poised to lead the future.
At Bharat Forge Limited, we don't believe in pause buttons. 50 years ago, we hit play, and we haven't stopped since. We move, we go places, and we take our legacy with us. We started small, but our dreams were big. And we chased them tirelessly with all our heart. That's what brought us to the top. To the world's biggest names. And to people's lives. We're committed to partnering greatness, no matter where we go. From India to Germany, to France to Sweden, and now USA. We always go that extra mile and bring
A very good afternoon to all the panelists who joined us for the session of the Global Innovation Index 2021. We would start our second session for the day in some time at exactly 3:15. Request you all to be there with us. Thank you. Dr. Ashish Raghupati, sir, with your permission, may we start the session? Sure. Thank you. So a very good afternoon to one and all. After an encouraging launch session of the Global Innovation Index 2021, I would now like to welcome you all to this session on innovation and R&D ecosystem of India, aspirations to be in league of top 25 innovation nations. Before we begin, I would request all the speakers to kindly keep their mics on mute and unmute while speaking. Our esteemed speakers for this session are Dr. Aurobindo Mitra, Scientific Secretary, Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India, Dr. Debashish Bhattacharjee, Vice President Technology and New Material Business, Tata Steel Limited, Ms. Sindhu Gangadharan, Senior Vice President and Managing Director, SAP Labs India, Professor Rishikresha Krishnan, Director, IIM Bangalore, Dr. Aloknath Dey, Senior Vice President and CTO, Samsung. I would now request Dr. Debashish to kindly take the session forward. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Pooja. And good afternoon to all the participants and listeners to this forum. It's my pleasure to welcome to this stage an eminent set of speakers, Dr. Aurobindo Mitra, who is Scientific Secretary to the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor of the Government of India, Professor Krishnan, Director IIM Bangalore, Dr. Aloknath Dey, Senior Vice President CTO of Samsung, and Ms. Gangadharan, who is the Senior Vice President and MD of SAP Labs. Innovation, as we know, is a key driver for modern economy. And the Global Innovation Index lets us take a stock of where each ecosystem is around the globe, or around over 80 odd parameters. And as we move along our index score, which, as you know, we have been 85, and now we are moved on from 48 to 46, and we aim to be among the top 25. It gives us an opportunity to measure ourselves against the best in the world and try to fill the gap, take action, and move towards being the best in the world. Today, we have an eminence of speakers who I've mentioned before, who would share their views in their respective areas, and we look forward to their contribution, their views, and on specific actions on the way forward. There have been a lot of actions that have been taken in the past, and we would ask them to reflect on the past and see what we can build stronger, and what else we need to build anew. To start with, may I request Dr. Aurobindo Mitra to share his views to the audience, please. Dr. Aurobindo Mitra.
Thank you, Debashish. Thank you for laying the foundation of our panel discussion today. So as Debashish did allude to the fact that India has been steadily moving up on the ladder from the current position to 46th, as it is announced yesterday. But I was just listening to another discussions earlier today, and I was looking at how different countries are really trying to change the slope of the curve so as to move more rapidly up the innovation index. So, and this is really something that we need to look into, is attending the 25th rank or above is not a mean or a small effort. It needs a very concerted, collaborative effort with a very strategic approach that is important, I feel. The second important aspect, is really, it's very important that at times I do wonder, the data architecture that we have in our system that captures the entire, the R&D ecosystem, the R&D statistics, both public and private sector, which in turn, helps to drive us the policy, the advice, the programs that follow. And this data is so critical when you make or when you try to develop a global innovation index and project what your country is doing. And very interestingly, of course, and very relevant that this year's GII, the main focus has been innovation during the COVID period. And I must say that I've been interacting and working across both nationally, subnationally, and internationally in this whole field of the challenges which COVID has posed and the innovations that different countries have come forward. And I'm very happy to say today that at least more than 500 startup companies have emerged, looking at the various facets of innovation that were put forth to fight the COVID pandemic. And I always quote the example of, the very fact that a country which was known for vaccine manufacturing within a span of 8 months could do right from development to manufacturing to deployment. All the three of this, we could clearly ramp up, developing a vaccine and then going through clinical trials and then using it in the human body is a major developmental challenge based on R&D. It's not only that, upscaling its production, doing the pilot test, doing the clinical test, getting all the clearances, then the manufacturing, and then rolling it out to the COVID app. This is a tremendous innovation path that we have followed. Whether the countries abroad recognize it or not, I don't care. But I think, this is something that all Indians are proud of. And at times when I say I don't care, it's because, whether we are really able to project it in form of the right data that is captured and relate to the world as what is the innovation potential of India is and how we can really work towards it. But in that context, coming back to COVID, I feel that, COVID really taught us and gave us a lot of lessons that we learned. And some of the roadmaps that we followed, I think it's good for us to actually look back and see how as a nation, we collectively came together and leveraged the entire ecosystem to come out with innovative products which the country needed and we could deliver. And this could happen because of the partnership and the collaborations that happened seamlessly across academia, R&D lab, the industries, the startup ecosystem. I think that is the need of the hour. How we could do that and leverage the resources that we have, the infrastructure we have, the knowledge that we have, and pool them in a seamless manner so that all the dots of innovation, so to speak, the entire life cycle of technological innovation, starting from the research lab to a pilot testing to its upscaling, and then also very important is its procurement and pushing it to the market. That is also very, very critical. So we put everything together. So all these dots could be very smoothly connected and we could deliver. So how can we make this as a new normal for the country? Because this is how we need to work together. Of course, and not that, we put in additional resources. Of course, we did in some sectors, but what we did was able to leverage the existing strength we had in a very smart and innovative way to address these situations. And I feel moving from COVID, of course, this is going to be a major thing. The health challenge that we are seeing today is another big thing that is striking large on us is the climate change. Now, this climate change is another major issue that is going to touch the lives of people across the globe, be it the developed world, developing or underdeveloped, whatever you like to call it. Every part of the earth today, we are seeing that this is hitting us very badly. And therefore, we have to come out with innovative ways of climate mitigation and climate adaptation. And very closely linked to this is the whole concept of green economy. And one of the biggest factors that is going to be influenced is is the entire energy basket, how we transition from conventional energy basket to a more non-conventional renewable energy basket using innovation. So this is going to be a big challenge. And I believe this is where I think India can play a very, very important role in really defining the innovation roadmap ahead. But there are certain things that also we have to look at, in terms of our own in-house, so to speak, you know, outlooks that we need to change. You would all realize that India is one among those countries. If you look at the top 10 economies, the government actually does a very disproportionate amount of heavy lifting on R&D investment. And this needs to be corrected, and this can be only corrected when the private enterprises, look at R&D as a part of their enterprise, and actually also, increase their R&D and research and innovation funding in a way so as to match these together to increase the overall R&D investment which the country needs. And this could be done in two ways, I believe. If you look, when I say that, government does the heavy lifting of R&D, most of the R&D expenditure, which again government does, actually goes into the government system, into the public system, rather than going also to the industry and startup. Number one, this needs to be corrected. And this aberration will be only corrected when there is a true partnership between the academia, industry, and startup. In other ways, we should look at new concepts of funding, of how we can really bridge the various TRL levels, where each of us could play a very complementary, synergistic, and partnership role. Whereas basic and fundamental research should be left to the government agencies to support. Then moving from TRL level from 5 to 7, we need to have a model from 7 and above, which is actually the deployment and commercialization has to have a different model. And all of this where we need a very close partnership. And this is very, very critical. The whole model of how we do research and innovation in the country, based on collaboration, based on a new model of funding, based on a mission approach, timetable-driven, goal, we can come out with innovative solutions, first defining the problem and then trying to come out with solutions in a time-bound manner. And it is immensely doable. As I told, we have done that during this COVID period. And I think this model needs to be very closely looked into, where partnership on consortia mode, so to speak, needs to be developed. And I would say that increasingly, as we launch our major missions, the new quantum mission, the new nano mission, the new deep ocean mission, the new cyber physical mission, all these missions will have this consortia approach where, it won't be led by a individual PI or an individual academic institution, but a cohort or a group of institutions, be it from academia, industry, startup, or R&D lab, all coming together to address this problem in a holistic manner. So this is, I think, a new method of looking at research and innovation is very important. There are several important things that I thought, also would define some of the new emerging paradigms that India is looking at. One is, we have a very large multinational R&D presence in the country. I just alluded to our own in-house R&D in our own enterprises, but there is a very large MNC outfit with a major R&D funding that is happening among the top 500 Fortune company. More than 400 of them have R&D presence in the country. And this research and innovation ecosystem that they have created has very little contribution, honestly speaking, to the innovation growth of the country or the economic growth of the country, except that, of course, jobs are generated. But can we leverage that in a more effective manner, which other countries have done it? For example, Israel, China, by really creating a seamless mechanism, which is more win-win. And if we can leverage this together, I think there's a huge impact that we can make together. I think it's high time we look into it. And this would also help in increasing the foreign direct investments into India through the R&D route, which is very, very important. We are one of the top destinations of FDI. Could R&D FDI in R&D be one of those stimulators that can propel innovation in a short form? Because there is tremendous that we can learn and through these MNCs by integrating them properly. The second important thing that we need to look into is the R&D exports. And this is where, of course, the industries have to play a very, very important role. High-tech service exports, we saw that, in the Global Innovation Index, of course, ICT services ranked pretty high, but there are a number of other areas where I think, basically engineering-based manufacturing that has a huge potential for India to actually push its export based on technology. This is something that also needs to be very closely looked into by the industry, for which the government has to put in place policies like you have heard of all the various PLI policies that are coming one after another. This, I believe, is going to be a game changer. But along with that, research and innovation has to be an integral part. The third important aspect, which I thought is, to develop what I call the techno-economic plan of India. It is important now, it is recognized that technologies has to play a very important role in the economic growth and in our strategic efforts, which could be related to Atmanirbhar Bharat or Make in India, whatever you would like to call it. We therefore need to have techno-economic plan that could look at two very important aspects. One is our import basket, and this is very critical. There are certain segments in the import basket that we can very easily sort of handle through a more closer cooperation between industry and the government, where a little bit of innovation that is required can really stop this huge drain out of foreign exchange and cut on the import basket, be it steel, be it fertilizer. Devatis is from steel sector. He knows that very well. And there are a team number of such sectors, be electron, the air conditioning, all the compressors of air conditioning, mind you, are imported. Now, this is something, it's not a rocket science. We can do all these things together. So these are some of the important things that we really look into these critical sectors and see where we can really work and reduce both the subsidy burden as well as on the import burden. The fourth important aspect that we need to allude to now is the science, technology, and innovation for sustainable development growth. And this is very, very critical today. Our country has actually committed to achieve the SDG goals by 2030, where I think research and innovation has to play a very, very important role, especially in the area of food, security, health, energy, and water. Where again, there is a huge potential for us to come together. One of the important things that I wanted to allude to is the need to actually inculcate research and innovation across the government of India. This is something, of course, which we are taking a major role. But here, I think this can only happen when there is an integration with the larger ecosystem, which includes industry and enterprises in the process. Now there is a need, the leadership has asked that, we need to infuse technology in all the line ministries of Government of India in order that their ability to perform, both their internal performance as well as their delivery of the various national missions that they're doing, whether it is Jal Shakti mission, whether it is Jal in every Nal, or whatever you call it, Digital India, hundreds of these missions are getting launched, where the science, technology, research, and innovation has to play a very important. So this really opens out a huge opportunity for our startup, our deep tech startup, and our industries to come forward, work, and unleash the potentials in our R&D labs to make this happen. The other important change that we are now doing, we do understand that last 70 years, a huge amount of investment for research development has been done in our national labs. And this is the work which CII has been doing with us. And they have captured the entire database of more than 600 odd national labs, the capacity that they have. If you're able to unleash that completely, along with our academic institutions, our IITs and all, then I think there's a huge potential again for us to really come together and forge and work in a seamless manner with some objectives. The last important thing, which is very, very important in a federal system like India, besides the central government, the state governments have to play a very major role in actually taking us to the next generation of innovation roadmap. And therefore, there is a need for us to work very closely with the state governments, and many of the state governments are now coming up with new policies and programs in place. But one of the most important and critical problems that I find when I also interact with industries is the need to have a trained manpower, skilled human capacity, which is very, very critical to take the next roadmap of innovation. And here I think all of you would agree with me, more than 90% of our students go to 2-tier, 3-tier universities and colleges. And there they have no clue of what research and innovation is. They get into rote learning, and that is what comes out and then finally gets absorbed into the system, and of course slowly learns and gets upskilled. So therefore, there is a need for all of us together to look into that particular aspect of state universities and colleges, which have got very bright minds, very ingenious young dynamic people who needs to be hand-holded and shown the way. Therefore, closer partnership with the state universities and with the state government is very, very important for us, because as the economy grows, as innovation grows, as startups grow, we need more and more people. Our critical mass of people working in research and innovation is so small. So these are some of the important things that we really need to allude to today in order to really move us and change the slope of the global innovation index and make it much more, the trajectory to be much more steeper for us to move up to the ladder chain. So these are some of the important things that we are doing. And one aspect which I thought I must inform to the audience here, that we are now closely working with public sector undertakings. And now a new rule would be coming that all PSUs have to invest minimum 2% of their budget after profit. The budget before profit, 2% of that in research and innovation. So this would actually, in a big way, add to the R&D budget of the country in few thousand crores. And there again, there is an opportunity for us to come together and unleash the potential which some of these large PSUs have, be it energy sector, be it whatever sector you talk, and really work together in tandem to take this path of research and innovation forward for us to move up the ladder. So these are some of the thoughts that I came, and I'll now hand it over to Debashish and ask the other panelists to speak, and then perhaps we'll have a quick round of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mittal. Thank you. That was wonderful. You covered a lot of topics about collaboration needed between government, industry, R&D sector, academia. You talked about skilled people. You talked about innovation roadmap, how the outlook should change and private industry should come in with substantial R&D investment. You talked about FDI in R&D exports, and the work that was done with the national labs, and how the center and state governments should work together, and many other points. Excuse me. I would take this opportunity to turn to Professor Krishnan. Professor Krishnan, you wrote a book on the ecosystem of India 10 years ago. How does it look from your perspective? How has India changed since then? And could you also look at, comment on what the government has done? Dr. Mitra spoke about FDI. Can you also comment on MNCs and their impact? The stage is yours, Professor Krishnan.
Thank you very much, Debashish, and good afternoon to all of you. I think at the outset, it's useful to remember that innovation is not really an end in itself. Innovation is desirable because it does some good things like enhance productivity, enhance the growth of the economy, and ultimately create a better quality of life for everyone in the country. So when we are talking about innovation, that's what we are really trying to achieve. As Debashish just mentioned, I wrote a book on India's innovation system about a decade ago, in 2010 actually. And I've been reflecting on how have things changed since then. So in that book, I used a very simple framework. I said that there are really three factors at the national level, which sort of in a way describe how innovation is happening and explain the magnitude and nature of innovation. One is the input factors, which would be things like trained people, infrastructure, the education system, etc. On the other side, there's the output. And of course, a lot of that is determined by how the markets value innovation. Are there incentives for innovation? For example, do more innovative companies get valued more in the stock market, things like that? And is there an incentive if you actually create new intellectual property? And connecting these two is what happens in organizations and firms that take all these inputs and finally convert them into all those outputs. So there's the innovation process, which largely happens in commercial firms. So if I look at the last decade, it seems to me that the output side is certainly improved. I think we are seeing a lot more in terms of the importance of innovation. Even the markets have started recognizing it. We're seeing IPOs even of research intensive companies. So that's a good thing. On the input side, some dimensions have changed. I would certainly commend the Atal Innovation Mission and the new education policy, which will, of course, take some time for results to appear, which have recognized the importance of improving the quality of inputs. Infrastructure, I think the picture is a bit mixed. In fact, the GII places India very poorly on innovation, on infrastructure. In fact, our worst score is on infrastructure. But the area which is of the greatest concern to me is actually the one in between, which is the process. What's happening in firms? I think what Dr. Mitra was just alluding to, which is the importance of firms doing more R&D. But it's not only about R&D, it's about the way firms are structured, the way the leadership looks at the innovation process, how much are they willing to invest? Questions like that become very important. Let me just also comment a little bit on the other point you mentioned, Debashish, which is about MNC R&D. I think MNC R&D has been a tremendously successful part of the Indian R&D ecosystem. We've seen it come from almost nothing in 85, 90 to being a very, very vibrant sector today. But I would tend to agree with Dr. Mitra's observation from a country or national point of view. It's been more a talent story than a story of this really contributing to the Indian economy itself. But in a way, there's a little bit happening. I'm sure a lot of the people in startups are people who have worked in these MNC R&D organizations. And they are, of course, driving a lot of the innovation today. So I think we need to create more mechanisms which will help some of these really talented technical people from the MNC start their own companies. We do have some programs, but maybe enhancing that would help. I think another interesting pointer from the Global Innovation Index is the only item on which we get the first rank is on ICT services export. But once again, that's not really very well integrated with the innovation ecosystem. If you look at our top IT companies, unfortunately, their spend on R&D is very, very marginal, and they're not really big players as far as innovation is concerned. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think, India being primarily a talent story, our biggest challenge is how do we orchestrate all of this talent and convert it into useful innovation impacts for the country. We need to be able to ride new tech waves for this. And I think Dr. Mitra mentioned a few of the new initiatives like quantum computing and cyber physical systems and so on. We need to make sure that we don't miss these waves as we missed a few of the waves in the past. And I think that's very important. We need to certainly build on COVID, as Dr. Mitra, again, very rightly mentioned in my view. I think one good thing that happened during COVID was the identification of needs and the connecting of companies and labs which had the capabilities to those needs. In normal times, those connects just don't seem to happen. So how do we kind of sustain those mechanisms? And we must build on the confidence that has been created during the COVID pandemic. At other times, sometimes we don't seem to have enough confidence to trust our own R&D abilities. And COVID has given us that confidence. We must make it forward. Let me just conclude with a few observations on a few things we need to do. We need to make academic and research institute research much more externally oriented. And I think the performance metrics need to reflect that. We can do it. COVID has shown that. So we need to make that part of the whole system. We need to facilitate the transition of research in academia and research institute into startups and also the tech transfer process. So some of the things that have happened like research parks in IITs or startup policies of educational institutions, these need to be fine-tuned and improved. We also need to be willing to fund research in industry. I think Dr. Mitra made that point. I completely endorse that. We've done it before. BIRAC is an excellent program which has funded R&D in small firms over the last 10 years with excellent results. Why can't we replicate BIRAC across other sectors? It's something that's not terribly clear to me. And of course, we must enhance infrastructure because, as I mentioned, that's the area in which we have the worst rank. Just to again sum up, ultimately what matters is the production of high quality products and services arising from the innovation that we do that can drive growth and prosperity. So we need to basically make sure that all the talent essentially gets channeled into the output. The Atmanirbhar policies are helping and they are a step in the right direction. But just one final caution, that's another area in which we have a poor rank. We are ranked number 90 last year on the protection we are giving our industry through tariffs. So we've got to balance that very nicely so that we don't overprotect, so that it makes industry competitive, but at the same time, we provide incentives for Indian industry to take up local problems. So that would be my take on where we are today and what we need to do going forward. I'm sorry, I might not be able to stay till the end of this panel, but it's been a pleasure to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Krishnan, for your views, and thank you for showing how the nation has changed over the last decade, and then where all it can enhance its strengths that it has built upon in the last decade. Can I we may come back to you before you leave. So I know you have to leave just a few minutes before 4. So let me turn at this point to the two foreign companies. Let's say we have been talking about MNCs a lot. One we have SAP and we have Samsung. So let me turn to the hardware company, Samsung, right? Dr. Dey, you've heard Dr. Mitra speak, you've heard Professor Krishnan speak, you've heard them talk about what has gone well. Yet, as a nation, we have missed a lot of waves, right? We have missed the electronics wave, we have missed the photovoltaic wave. So, in your opinion, what has gone well and what could have gone well? Later on, I'll come back to you on what we can do, to make ourselves better suited, better prepared.
Sure. Thank you very much. And I think the stage is set. And I must say, I met Dr. Krishnan about in 2012 sometime, and he published his book, and we had in a conference that discussions on innovation. So lovely to meet again and discuss this topic. I mean, we should celebrate this moment as we set the stage for 25th. How do you get there? But definitely few things we are doing right. Let me put my thoughts into 3 parts. The things that are going well, and we must continue to feed well just to stay there where we are, because the world would move. And if we don't encash upon our strength, then we might be lagging behind. So things that we are doing well and growing, Dr. Mitra talked about Department of Technologies, Department of Science, ISRO's contribution, the DST, the DBT, the homegrown satellite programs, lots of public-private labs. In some way or the other, may not be in a consolidated fashion, they have been making the contributions in a big way. So we should feed that system very well. The second point, I think MNCs, what can they do more to the country is one thing that's up to all of us to leverage, and we would love to do that. And we are doing through different forums like CII to share that best practice, participate into programs. But I think the good point that is there, if you look into the ranks of Sweden, Switzerland, Sweden, US, UK, and even Korea, they were not there in 10 couple of years back, and last year in 10, and this year jumped to 5th. And we being able to work with our headquarter, bringing that knowledge in patents and intellectual capital, we should consider this to be a resource, and definitely we're filing a lot of patents and building products. Through this osmosis process, I'm sure these 800 plus GCC that are there is playing a role, and we should continue to do that well. The third thing that we are doing in the recent time, the startup programs, the ecosystem, the number of unicorns that have come in this pandemic period in 1 year is just surpassed the 3 years total results, right? And many of us have become angel investors, and the VCs, number of VCs have grown like anything. So therefore, I think this young communities, if we nurture, and there are a lot of government interesting programs, this is we should continue this and doing well. The recent initiatives of Make for India, that's the 4th part, PLI in mobile, like we have Samsung, this is a year we are celebrating 25th year in India, but even manufacturing early 2000, we started in India before any Make for India or PLI schemes. Obviously, we are benefiting from that. We have made the world largest mobile manufacturing in India. So, and many other companies are coming, it used to be only few from there, many more companies and government initiatives on PLI, on telecom gears, on automotive ancillaries. These are really praiseworthy steps. And I think it will be very, very helpful. And the fifth part that we are doing well is a bit of, I won't say we are there, but absorption and diffusion of knowledge. This is one of the items in the innovation metric. Whether you look into our other program, the UPI, the vaccine program, ability to do at scale. Yes, we have fumbled, but at the same time, running such a mega program is an extraordinary job for a country like us. And I think we should be proud of our achievement. So these 5 things I would think that we must continue to do well. What are the things that we should take it? Because some have to be driver to get to 25th just by doing continuous improvement in all, it will not take us there. So one important thing that we have realized during COVID time in the active pharmaceutical ingredients, the supply chain of the pharmaceuticals, that was broken and we have suffered, right? But the lessons, if we want to pick it up from there, and Devashish, you asked me as a hardware company, but I think the hardware accelerations is also very, very necessary. Some of the companies have started looking into it. Software will be a driver and will do well. But absence of hardware at some point, when you talk about cyber physical systems and sensors and devices and intelligent entities, then I think it will take time. So there could be a pause. Therefore, it may not give us a result in next 2, 3, 4 years, but it has to be started now. And definitely the semicon part that we talked about and different forums, lots of discussions is absolute necessity. It was an optional before, but I don't think it is an option anymore. The reason is very clear because it's strategic in this and electronics is going everywhere, car to everything that we touch. The amount of electronics manufacturing that we want to do here, but the bottleneck, next level of bottleneck would be onto the chip and the shortage is already evident. So I think the first point I would like to do is emphasis on hardware and what all we can do, including the fab, is something that we should look into it seriously. The second thing is the national mission that you talked about, and I'm part of this interdisciplinary cyber physical systems with IIT Delhi on cobotics and many other centers, 25 programs, very deeply we're working. And I think it's interesting. So some cases, there is a government initiative like quantum computing and ICPS, but then there is a conducive environment that's absolutely necessary for the startups and private players. For example, in blockchain, there have been a lot of discussions, but it's absolute necessity, again, in my opinion, to create that conducive environment so that these companies can thrive and build results. So that's my second point, where we are good at, how do you be the best? And the third thing where we have shown result is industry and university. They are working, they're producing results, but it is time now that ecosystem play, startups, governments, industry, and the university. Our rank there is 65th, I saw that. But how do you benchmark our linkage and learn from other successful programs would be, again, a desired thing. And we have started doing it, but we have to do much more to produce the results. So that's on the driver part. And I'll just conclude with 2 sentences on there is certain things that's not for ranking, that's for our living. Whether rank goes up or not, few things is not so pleasant. When you look into female employed with advanced degrees, it's 103rd rank. If we look into ecological sustainability, it's like 98, with environmental performance is at 125th. So I think here, some of these topics of the above average on knowledge and tech output, market sophistication, we do quite well, below 30 rank. But then some of these are quite below. So I think we can't live as a dignified citizen to have it at such a lower level. So we would also need to work on that, if not for ranking, but as I said, for our living. So with that, I will pause here and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Day, and those were really insightful pointers on where India should focus for the being in the top 25, and your points about women in science and environmental technology are well taken. Maybe later on I can comment on our steel industry's view on these. I know, Professor Krishnan, you have to go. Do you have any last parting comments before you leave?
Not really. I think we all know what to do. We just have to get down to doing it now. So I'm certainly happy that the PSA and Dr. Mitra and many others have taken the lead. I think we should all join them and try to make all of this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. May I now turn to Ms. Gangadharan? Right. We just heard that ICT is top rank. India ranks top in terms of export of technology. Here you are, we have MNC who's come into India and has been in India for what, 25 years or something like that?
Yes, that's correct.
And you have your second biggest R&D in India, right? This is the SAP lab.
Yeah.
Right. How do you see India how have you seen India evolve in the last 25 years that you've been here? And what do you think India should do to be in the top 25 in your domain?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Debashish, and good evening to everybody. It's been great just listening in to everybody's point of view and thought process, and particularly also to Mr. Mitra about the collaboration, that potential that exists, right? And yeah, and I'll just possibly just before I get into the SAP context, Debashish, I just want to congratulate all the stakeholders involved for India's improved ranking in the Global Innovation Index. I think it's a great step forward. And I think it's also a clear kind of, how would you say, certification of the fact that we are clearly leading when it comes to leading some of the best topics when it comes to research and development in the area of science and technology. And I'd like to also comment on what Mr. Mitra said earlier, right? There's a large number of policies and programs from the government, and there's definitely a much deeper investment from the private sector. And if you ask me, India's R&D community has also been developed in a way to encourage that kind of innovation culture and also absorb some of the major technologies. I mean, some of you mentioned artificial intelligence, blockchain, electric vehicles. And today, if you just look at Indian scientists, right, we are also looking into topics which was not the case like 10 years back, right? New energy, quantum computing, or CO2 to fuels. As compared to in the past, we were looking mainly into space, telecom, semiconductors, which we talked about, electronics and conventional energy. And I think a lot of this emerging areas definitely is a huge opportunity for us as India to come as a leader, at least in many of these niches. And I think earlier on, Mr. Mitra, you also talked about what COVID kind of unleashed, right? I mean, we saw a lot of the transformation in terms of bringing the ecosystem together. And I think the COVID pandemic clearly unleashed an ecosystem, if you want to call it, of innovation in India, because it was, of course, driven by the urgency of the humanitarian situation. But at the same time, it was completely combined with the government's very proactive approach to also crowdsource ideas, bring people together, kind of lead India to mobilize some of the challenges that we are facing, and also to produce low-cost solutions for public health systems, right? I just also want to reflect at that point in time, I mean, when we were looking at the entire connection of all the oxygen suppliers in the country, Debashish, we were pulled in, right? Because we were like, hey, more than 80% of the largest oxygen manufacturers in the country run SAP. So we were like, okay, how can we kind of come in there and really use the power of technology to connect all the oxygen suppliers to the government's oxygen digital dashboard, right? So that was one quick example of how large corporations like us just bring in our key product experts. We had also the back end already covered from the usage of SAP, but it's the power of technology, right, to quickly build out that and make it possible, and also create that lasting impact with many of these innovations. And also want to just refer back to the point. I mean, we've been recognized as one of the largest producers of vaccines. And Mr. Mitra, you just said, right, the whole development, manufacturing, and as well as the deployment of the vaccines, if you think about it, it's been phenomenal, the scale at which we have done it across the nation, and also the recent mark of reaching 20 million vaccinations in a single day. I mean, that's again the power of technology as well as the power of the demographics to drive that kind of a transformation. Well, and I want to also just reflect back in terms of scientific publications. I think we are just way ahead when it comes to also the number of publications that we have on some of the cutting edge topics, right? Like smart grid technologies, photovoltaics, biofuels, biomass. I think that clearly also complements the government's push to expand green energy sources. We are also the top 10 patent filing nations in the world. So all in all, I'd say that it's just that right set of momentum, the right set of impulses, the great examples of what we can do if we really come together, right? I think earlier on there were points that I think Mr. You mentioned, right? I mean, we were very high when it comes to knowledge and technology outputs, also when it comes to market sophistication. How on the infrastructure, we are relatively low, right? So there's also quite some things I would think if you look at investments by private corporations, including also the investment in R&D by companies like SAP, I believe we can definitely improve our ranking in the coming years, right? And also we talked about startups quite a bit. If you just look at how we have in India driven the league of countries when it comes to the number of startups, I think 2021, despite pandemic or despite the second wave, I think we've been one of the most successful years for the India startup ecosystem. And if I just look at the numbers, we added 3 unicorns every single month in 2021, right? Which took the overall number of startups valued at $1 million to a total of 51, which is even double compared to the previous numbers. And again, here, if I just reflect on SAP's contribution and how we, through our startup accelerator programs, we have a very thriving startup accelerator program that we've been running since 2017. And we've managed to kind of take startups, 51 startups, take them to market in joint collaboration with SAP. Now think about the power when this is just multiplied across the MNCs across India, right? And also here, if I just reflect back over the last years, Debashish, you can also see a lot of the startups or the eco-entrepreneurs, right? They're really finding solutions to some of India's most pressing social but also ecological challenges. And I also want to call out, we are funding a startup which through our entrepreneurship program directly from SAP called Everloop, right? And they're doing such an incredible job in kind of empowering businesses and building that entire value chain, which is all to build a transparency to achieve zero waste. And I think there's so many such examples, and I want to also reflect on the fact that even if I just look back at India's 600 million internet users that we have today, and the fact that we're going to reach 900 million users, internet users by 2025, you could imagine what that means when we talk about usage of technology to kind of go into those rural areas to further complement the innovations that we're doing, mainly also in some of the in some of the metros, right? So these are a few things that I can reflect upon. And now coming to the SAP context, since you started your question with that, yes, Labs India is the largest labs in the SAP universe, Debashish, and in fact, it's the largest lab outside our headquarters in Germany, right? And here in India, we are represented across 5 locations: Bangalore, Mumbai, Gurgaon, Hyderabad, as well as in Pune. And what is very unique about our ecosystem here in India is the fact that if you just look at our breadth of the portfolio, at the core of everything that we do, we are trying to support our customers and our partners to become true intelligent enterprises. And I think initially, Mr. Mitra, you talked about the power of data. And at the core of the intelligent enterprise is really about making sure that you use data to navigate your business. And the reason I'm saying that in the context of Labs India is because every part of that R&D investment towards having that framework of an intelligent enterprise, when we talk about be it the cloud ERP, or when we talk about building a full-blown workforce management or supply chain, or if I look into the whole SME business, this is all being developed here, right here in our R&D hub here in India, right? Every single element is present here. Also, some of our recent acquisitions that we made, or the most recent one of Swoop Talent in Hyderabad. And so we're doing quite some investment in India, and also the whole investment into the young talent pool. We hired just this year more than 2,200 employees, right? And we have not yet finished the last quarter, and we already doubled our target that we had set for 2020 already this year. So we're very much invested in that young talent pool in India, and we are already also collaborating with a lot of the universities, because I truly believe that if we have that combination of where the industry, the academia, and the government come together, create those interlocks, and really look at also how we build the education systems of the future, where the talent that's emerging out of the universities are able to come in and really tackle those very significant problems from the industry. I think that's the change that we're working towards. In fact, we work with a lot of the large universities through our University Alliances program, and we'd be very happy to even take that to the next level, right? So these are a few things that I'd like to talk about. In fact, if time permits, I'd also like to come back and just reflect also on how can we take forward with the focus on technology and take India to the top 25 from an innovation point of view. But I'll just pause and give it back to you, Debashish, to make sure that we have everything covered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gangadhar. It was fantastic to hear from you about the contribution that SAP has made in the oxygen distribution all over India. We know we struggled a lot, all of us, and we supplied some of the oxygen, and you were part of the ecosystem which enabled that supply to happen. And again, the numbers that you've said, India is already in the top 3 in the world in startups. It's going to be 900 million users of internet. All of these open up a certain energy in the innovation system, and that it speaks about that. May I turn to Dr. Mitra? And in your, I'll just draw you into the discussion if you don't mind. You had mentioned TRL-based collaboration. That was a very interesting fact. It's just not collaboration across all developments from basic to application. And that reminded me of the systems that Germany has or UK has. So Germany has its Max Planck Institutes, which are designed to be institutes which are platforms that bring industry and academia together at the basic low TRL level. And then you have the Fraunhofer system, which brings in all these players at a higher TRL level. In UK, you have the EPSRC funding mechanism, which is for the low TRL. It's large number of projects with smaller funds, and then you have the Innovate UK type, which funds smaller number of projects but large amount of funds, and mostly through the catapult centers, which are again the platforms for near commercial development of technologies where academia and university and government meet. How is that system applicable in India, or is there a thinking about having such a system in India, or modifying our existing systems to make them as robust as the German or the UK system?
Yeah, I mean, you see, there are 2 dimensions. There is what I call the discovery science, and there is the solution science. And you need to have this innovative mechanism of connecting the discovery science with the solution science. I would say last 70 years, our focus more has been in creating knowledge, in nurturing science, developing the infrastructure, which is a good investment. We can say in the hindsight, that paid us back. But today, progressively, we've been asked by the people and polity at large, how can science really touch the lives of people? Or as the Prime Minister says, ease of living. And that, therefore, would need an unshackling of the system so that I'm talking of our public R&D system that needs to come out from the four corners of the lab and from the boundaries of their own institutions and connect more with society, with the economy, so as that there is a direct contribution of the new knowledge, the investments that we are doing in generating new knowledge. That knowledge has to be converted back to wealth again. And I'm not telling, and these are things that need to be balanced together. When I talk of the TRL, you cannot go to TRL 6 and 7 unless you support the TRL 1, 2. So this is just connecting the dots together so that the cycle is complete. And this has to be now looked into more closely because our funding structures, our policies, our incentives to our scientists all need to be relooked, and this needs to be unshackled in a way where, of course, the industries and enterprises have to play a very, very major role because, the last leg of it, taking it to the market, commercializing it, upscaling it cannot be done by the laboratories and the academia, where the industries have to come and play an important role. So each part of the TRL, therefore, if we closely look into and put in programs in place so that one talks to the other, rather than one being independent of the other. When we invest in quantum frontiers, it has got huge implication on quantum materials, on quantum communication, on quantum computing, and so on and so forth. But that needs to be actually connected. I keep on telling the scientists, your job is to create new knowledge. You do have, impact factors of your paper, which impacts your own CV, but how does it impact the society at large? So, you have to impact the society. The scientists and technologists today or innovators cannot work in isolation. They have to keep the society at the center. So I think, therefore, we have to really look into it. It is immensely doable. There is enough resources, but if we smartly put this together so that one leaps into the other and connects, I think it will be done. And I think the new programs that would emerge will slowly look into this aspect. But again, partnership with industries and enterprises would be very, very critical. So as also involving the startup in these models right from the beginning.
Thank you, Dr. Mitra. May I change the sequence and come back to Ms. Gangadharan? And you said, you would like to have a second, if you get a second chance, right?
Yeah.
Comment on collaborations and maybe I can request you to talk also on sustainability from your perspective. And the reason I say that is, we equate sustainability to industries such as steel, right, which actually produce something, give out CO2. But we also see that the Bitcoins get out of business because of sustainability, right? So what's your view on strengthening collaborations and playing with the ecosystem and also addressing sustainability?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I start this time with your second part of the question on sustainability, Debashish, and just also want to just take a minute and just also reflect on our vision as an organization in terms of how seriously we take the topic of sustainability and why we believe that we have a very important role to play. Because again, like I mentioned earlier on, right, when we think about the power of technology to drive such topics, that's when the impact is just at scale, right? So at SAP, Debashish, we firmly believe that the local actions that you take have global consequences, right? So this is also why, irrespective of our commitment to sustainability in terms of building our portfolio, etc., we're doing a lot locally as well as a lab to make sure that our operations, our business practices are also completely done in a sustainable manner, and it's in line with some of our larger objectives as well. And also what SAP did is we clearly, right, at Labs India, we're leading by example. Like I said, we are a very strong 14,000 plus strong family here in India. And for us, it's a key decision that we're very conscious of how we run and how we operate on the ground. Just to give you a little bit of color in terms of how that relates to 80% of the total energy that's consumed on our campus is being derived from various green energy sources. Or 70% of our transport, of course, now with COVID, all that is a bit of a standstill. But when our transport in full-time operations is run by electric vehicles, right? And we have the in-house EV charging stations on our campus. And on our campus, very earlier on, right, we were free of the single-use plastic bottles. It's such an important thing to do and has such a significant impact because we all know that plastic contributes to the dumps that we are seeing in the oceans, right? So as a responsible organization, we've used the approach of first avoiding, second, it's about reducing, and third, it's about compensating as well for our emissions. And that's one thing, right? And the second thing which I also want to call out is the fact that the way we are building out our product portfolio. Now, Debashish, what you would be very happy to hear is 80% of the world's business transactions touch an SAP system. Now, that's a huge thing. And so we also take that responsibility very seriously, right? And we also have a role to play as organizations look at their end-to-end business processes. Besides the fact that we give them all the capabilities of looking at their top line and bottom line, what we are building in is all the sustainability metrics built into those analytical and transactional processes. So which means we give that full visibility to our 500,000 customers who run SAP to have that visibility and take those conscious decisions, right? And that's a very key part and something which we are very proud of driving. So we are, in a nutshell, adding sustainability as a new dimension of success into our analytical and transactional application. So it's almost like a green line, if you want to call it, in terms of what we are building into our core product portfolio. So that's about sustainability. I just want to come back to some of the areas which I wanted to also touch upon initially in terms of how can we take forward the technology innovation and agenda in India collaboratively. And when I mean collaboratively, it's really with organizations like us, together with the government, together with the academia as well. And there are a few strategic areas which I think will clearly require that industry government attention. And these are also low-hanging opportunities, right? First and foremost, it's the role of technology innovation in sustainable development, right? That's important. Also, innovation in the field of digital infrastructure being a foundation for your products, for your processes, for the business innovations, I think is very important. I think many of us spoke about skilling, right? And I want to reiterate what I said. It's really about also making sure about readiness through skilling. And that I think is very important. So ensuring readiness through skilling, work organization, and also redesign, making sure that your workforce is ready to take on those new roles, right? Which is defined and kind of driven by digital development, I think becomes very important. We're seeing a lot of new roles evolve, right? You have IoT engineers, you have additive manufacturing specialists. All of these roles are clearly evolving and also emerging every single day. And if you just look at our traditional strength about our demographics and talent and all that, I think if we couple it with really what is needed for that digital transformation, I think that can really position us into a leadership position. Then, of course, not to forget the regulatory ecosystem, right? That definitely needs to foster innovation and also foster the Atmanirbhar Bharat, but at the same time, being able to leverage those global linkages. I think that would be the very smart thing to do. I don't want to miss out on the huge strength that we have with the SMEs, right? We have 63 million SMEs in India who contribute to what nearly 1/3 of the GDP, right? And again, here it's about innovations that need to happen in digital solutions, which are affordable and also accessible to SMEs. I think that can have a huge ripple effect. And particularly with the advances in the cloud, it's definitely possible. We know at SAP ourselves, we launched our startup pack for Business One solutions for SMEs, and it's at a truly affordable price and really helping accelerate a lot of things for the SMEs. So these are few things. I think lastly, use of emerging technologies to also support the innovation ecosystem, but at the same time also innovations in the emerging technologies are all going to give us those opportunities for all of us to help bring that collaboration together, but also drive the innovation index even higher.
Thank you, Ms. Gangadhar. Dr. De, we are running out of time. Any last points from your side?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I understand. So the R&D engine, I think, has to be seen as a business growth. And many of the bigger companies, the MNCs, those who have been operating, like we've been spending, if you look into pandemic time itself, $18 billion globally. In India, we're filing like almost 250, 300 patents. So it's very heartening to note that PSUs would invest also and percentage of that money because the R&D needs that investment. So that's number one. Number two, I think the manufacturing plus R&D could also spur a lot of creativity innovations. We are seeing that, so we should also encourage into that ecosystem journey. And third point, I wanted to highlight what Ms. Sindhu also explained, that the startup ecosystem and many of these corporates, we have also have our Samsung strategic investment, venture fund, and many in the accelerators. And through those platforms, we take these startups to go to market and international market. By virtue of that, there is a lot of product collaboration that happens. So these are things that we could take forward, and sustainability would always remain a topic. Solar missions like that is very important for India. But at the same time, what we have been doing well, this other UPI, I would repeat that, the vaccine program, for social good, how can you scale up quickly? This is an asset for us, and I think we should leverage that more and more for the country's growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. De. And at this point, I thank all the speakers. I thank Dr. Mitra, Dr. De, and Ms. Gangadharan, and Professor Krishnan in absence. We have overshot. Apologies to the organizers. Back to you, Pooja.
Thank you.
Thank you, Devashish. And Dr. Mitra, thank you, Ms. Sindhu. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would like to thank all our esteemed panelists for an insightful session. With this, we come towards the end of the first day proceedings of the CII Global Innovation Conclave 2021. I would like to thank our government partners, Niti Aayog, Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India, and World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO. Also, our corporate partners, Chief Innovation Patron, GE, Innovation Patrons, Ashok Leyland and Tata Steel, Innovation Partners, Bharat Forge, Cummins, and SAP, Innovation Co-Partners, Pronin and Sankhya Labs, Innovation Associate Partners, Central Manufacturing Technology Institute and Syngene, Research Partners, SAC. We would request you all to kindly join us for the second day of the CII Global Innovation Conclave on 22nd September. That's tomorrow at 10 a.m. Have a very nice evening. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.